is important. 49 days is even more important, but somehow they refer to 40 days. In, for example, the art of dying, the Bardo Todol, the times in the Bardo and stuff like that. Mostly they refer to 49 days, but here and there sometimes 40 days is also mentioned. So anyhow, the 20 days, which is half of the 40, is a very fundamental time cycle for the Maya. And of course, the Tun, the 310/6 is also very, very important. And the other time cycles coming after Tun are having this Tun at the end of their names, like Katun. One Katun is 20 Tuns. And one Katun is therefore around 20 years. But every year, 5 days are missing, so it's 19.7 years. The bigger time cycle from Baktun is, Katun is Baktun, and one Baktun is 400 Tuns. And it makes 394 years, which is just a time cycle, which is pretty long, right? The things are getting more interesting, I believe, after the Baktun. The bigger time cycle is called Piktun, which is 20 Baktuns, therefore it makes around 7,900 years. Wait a second, 7,900 years long. It's a time unit. How old the Mayan civilization is? How old the Maya go back in time? As long as we know, they are coming from the Olmecs in the Central America, and Olmecs are around 5,000 years old from today, approximately. So even the time unit Piktun is expanding over the whole history of the Mayan civilization. So this is not just a time unit that is specific to the Maya. It is concerning only the Mayan people. And it doesn't even stop there. When we come to Kalaptun, one Kalaptun is 158,000 years long, which is way beyond any civilization on Earth. And this is still just one time cycle. What would you measure with these time cycles? Just measuring about or taking track of when are you going to pay your taxes or when are you getting your salary. So this is not a material understanding of time. This is a very spiritual understanding of time. And then we go even further, like Kinchiltun is 3.15 million years long. And there was no human beings on planet Earth 3 million years ago. We were not evolved yet. And Alautun is even bigger, which is 63 million years long. And it doesn't stop there. Hablatun is 20 Alautuns, therefore it is 1.2 billion years. So what would you measure with Hablatun time unit? Because this is just one Hablatun, which is around 1.2 billion years. If you talk about 4 Hablatuns, this is around 4.8, 4.9 billion years, 5 billion years. What happened 5 billion years ago? The Earth was still being formed. So there was no planet Earth. So this is an understanding of time that is beyond astronomical cycles, beyond astronomical structures of the universe. Because if I talk about 10 Hablatuns, it is perhaps even older, much older than our solar system. So why all the calendars of the world, like Jewish calendar, Chinese calendar, all the lunar calendars and the solar calendars are talking about a specific aspect of time. This obviously is talking about another aspect of time, which is the chaos, according to the ancient Greek. So now maybe you're asking, how can we utilize this picture then? You know, like what do they mean? What can they show us? But before going into that, I just want to compare these time cycles of the Mayan calendar with another famous tradition, which is the Vedic one, and the Yuga cycles, the famous Yuga cycles. Because in the Vedic culture, there are also very, very long cycles of time. So maybe you can just come up and say, hey, you know, it's not only the Maya, the Vedic culture was also aware of that. And there was these cycles of the Yugas. These time amounts are, although controversial, I just take it for granted. This doesn't really matter so long in the end of the day, because the Kali Yuga, for example, is 432,000 years long. But a complete Yuga cycle, which is made up of 10 times bigger than the Kali Yuga, is 4 million 20,000 years. Sorry. So it is just 10 times bigger than an ordinary Kali Yuga cycle. So this would give us an average mathematics about how the Yuga cycles work. The 432,000 years is kind of a primary unit. It's like the main time unit that is being used. And if you multiply it by 10 times, because there's two times, the Dvapara Yuga is 2 times bigger than Kali Yuga, Treta Yuga is 3 times bigger than Kali Yuga, and Satya Yuga is 4 times bigger than Kali Yuga. So 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 makes 10. So the entire cycle makes 10 Kali Yuga times, which is 4,320,000. Okay, so they are big enough, but there are even bigger time cycles according to the Vedic culture. For example, 1,000 of Yuga cycles make 4.32 billion years that make up 1 day of Lord Brahma. So 1 day of Brahma is around 4 billion years. But Brahma also has nights. So 1 night of Brahma is as long as his day. So 1 day and 1 night of Brahma would make 8.6 billion years or something like that. But with the onset of Brahma's night, the entire universe is devastated and plunged into darkness. And after that, when another day of Brahma begins, life again becomes manifest. So this sounds very much like a fairy tale, like very not having a scientific ground or something like that. But still, I just want to give it a try to compare it with scientific evidence that we have. So let's just analyze this 4.32 billion years long time cycle. What happened, for example, 4.23 billion years ago from now? Well, around 4.6 billion years ago from today, the Earth was formed. So remember what the expression was, that with the day of the Brahma, the life starts emerging again. And a little bit before that, approximately that time, our Earth was formed. A little bit after that, which is 3.8 billion years, according to the contemporary scientists, first cells emerged on the planet. So it's around 3.8 billion years long. So this picture is somehow fitting, although not entirely, but there you could say that there's some kind of a truth to that. There's some kind of a correlation behind that. The 1 day of Brahma is one day of Brahma before today was also the first cells emerging on the planet, approximately. And there is a little bit more divisions into that. Let's try to just understand the evolution according to the Yuga cycles from a different dimension. And we need to go through a little bit smaller time cycles. And it is also mentioned in the Vedic culture. They talk about each day of Brahma. By the way, this is also called a kalpa. One kalpa, or 1 day of Brahma, is divided into 14 periods, and they are called manvantara. There are 14 manvantara periods. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm sorry for Vedic experts in this hall. But when you divide 1 day of Brahma into 14, you come up with 308 million years. And also, they say each manvantara period ends with a partial devastation and starts with a partial recreation of the universe. So there's some kind of a partial destruction and recreation also at these time cycles. Like every 308 million years long, something is happening. So let's try to check if this is some scientific reality. I just want to present you a pretty significant research done on the fossil records by scientists from California University, Rode and Müller, and they are from Berkeley Institute. And according to a paper they published in Nature magazine in 2005, the fossil record show some consistency in terms of the life forms being expanded and destructed again. Like there's some kind of a 62 million year cycle that is influencing the life forms on the planet. Every 62 million years there's some kind of a small catastrophe, and suddenly the amount of the species just disappear according to the fossil record, and then slowly it builds up in 62 million years, and then it suddenly again goes back, as you can see in this graphics. So let's just try to fit this 308 million years here. Okay, wait a second. Did you catch some relationship between the Mayan time cycles and this? Do you remember some of these biggest time cycles in the Mayan calendar? Like Alautun, which was 63 million years, right? Okay, this is an interesting point. Let's just stop here for a while. Well, what makes unique this research of Kalaman on the Mayan calendar is that by looking at these time cycles of Alautuns and Hablatuns, we can actually understand and measure the evolution of consciousness. And according to this theory that Kalaman presented in his books, every 63 million years, there's an evolutionary leap. There's a shift in the evolution. And 63 million years actually refers a lot to the biological evolution, where the first cell started and then the multiple cell organisms are evolving. So the research of Rode and Miller is a big support for this. They actually have been looking for the reason for this and they couldn't figure it out yet. But if you have read Kalaman's books before Rode and Miller's research, you would say, okay, I know this is because of the Mayan calendar time cycles, because of the evolution of consciousness. Of course, this is not an acceptable argument from a scientific standpoint, because scientists would say, okay, oh, do you believe in God? You're going to say it's divine plan or something like that. No, come on, we don't publish your article or something like that. But according to Kalaman, this is how it is. And we're going to come back to that later on, but I just want to still keep continuing comparing the Yuga cycles with this. And I just want to remind you this 308 million years cycles. And 308 million years, for example, would fit something like that. There's some kind of a correlation here or there, like from 200 million years to around 508 million years. There's some kind of a movement of like a collapse of the species and then re-emergence of life. So maybe the Vedic Yuga cycles and these expressions of 308 million years, life is being partially dissolved and then partially renewed, has some truth according to this research. Another one here is from 150 million years to around 458 million years. You can see this big fall down of data coming from the research. Another one is here. So you can see some correlations also. The 308 also somehow fits. Okay, so can we make use of the Yuga cycles and understand evolution of consciousness? Well, I haven't researched it. I don't know any researcher who have actually came up with such accuracy and such a complete picture as Kalaman came up with the Mayan calendar. I don't know such a guy or such a research. So I'm kind of dismissing it. But this doesn't mean that the Kali Yuga doesn't have any importance or something like that. This needs to be researched or investigated. And there are also a lot of inconsistencies in terms of the knowledge coming from the Vedic Yuga cycles. But I can make some conclusions from my personal standpoint. There are some things that we're going to explore more in the future about the Mayan calendar, but one of them is this number 20. Number 20 in the Mayan calendar is a kind of a constant, which means that this number repeats at every level of evolution. And it's also linking different time cycles, different speeds or rhythms of evolution. This is not very clear for you right now, but maybe if you can remember, one Katun is 20 tuns, and one Baktun is 20 Katuns, one Piktun is 20 Baktuns, so it always gets multiplied by 20. So there is this constant of 20 that links different time cycles, different time units, micro time units and macro time units. Like one Katun is just 20 years, and one Alautun is 1.2 billion years. What is the connection between them is the number 20. Because if you keep dividing if you keep dividing 1.2 billion years into 20, you will come up with Katun, which is like around 20 years. This is exactly what is written on the Koba stone. You can just go and do your own research and see these things. So the micro time units and the macro time units are intelligently connected by the numbers 13 and 20. 13 is also another significant number in the Mayan calendar. You will see it's also going to be repeating all over the Mayan calendar. It is somehow connecting the micro and the macro. in the Yuga cycles, there's no constant. Okay, there's some numbers which repeats a lot of the times, but there's not one number, there's no one constant that connects all the big time cycles and the small time cycles. So this is kind of an incomplete picture. Also, micro and macro time units are arbitrarily connected. They are somehow like, okay, take 4.32 million years, multiply it by 1,000, okay, you go to the Brahma day of Brahma. So it's kind of arbitrary, like 1,000, what is 1,000? 1,000 is not a very intelligent number. And another time you don't multiply it by 1,000, but with another number. So there's not a constant. And also, the Mayan calendar, as you will see tonight, it explains this evolution of consciousness on Earth. The cycle shifts of the Mayan calendar explains the evolution of consciousness on Earth, which can be verified, supported by scientific data. Like Roder and Miller's research is a big one. But according to Yuga cycles, there is no complete picture of evolution on Earth. As you see, some of the facts are fitting, but it's not a complete picture. Or I would say nobody has come up yet with a complete picture of evolution of consciousness with the Yuga cycles. So therefore, I'm just moving away from the subject and just let's move into the Mayan calendar again. But before that, there's also one very important aspect of Mayan calendar, which is making it very different from the Yuga cycles, understanding of time from the Yuga. According to the Yugas, evolution is cyclical. Everything is cyclical. But according to the Maya, of course there are cycles, but these cycles are spiraling. There is a cycle which is smaller than the one which is below. So it's like a spiral, like a cone. The evolution is following a spiral shape. Which would mean that evolution is getting faster and faster and faster. But according to the Kali Yuga or Yuga cycles, evolution is always in the same speed. It's always 432,000 years or something. It never gets accelerated. But for the Mayan calendar, it's getting accelerated. And actually, from another scientist, Carl Sagan, he died before Kalaman has written any books or something like that. But in his book, Cosmic Clock, he explains things in a very beautiful way. He says, the entire lifetime of the universe since the Big Bang is compressed into 1 year in this book. Okay? So if on this clock the Big Bang took place on New Year's Day, like 1st of January, then the Earth would have been formed in August. Our planet is formed in August. The first multicellular organisms would have emerged in November. The first higher mammals appear on December 29th of the year. Homo erectus would have appeared 10:48 p.m. on December 31st, like in the last 1 hour 12 minutes of the year. And then the voyage of Columbus had taken place 1 second before midnight on the last day of the year. So this shows us that we think that we have a huge and long history as humanity, right? But it's just, how long? It's just 1 hour in this cosmic clock. So we have just 1 hour, 12 minutes of history on the entire cosmic clock. And the evolution in the beginning was much slower. But you can see how it is getting faster. In August, the Earth is formed. In November, the first multicellular organism. So suddenly, in a very short amount of time, so many evolution has taken place. This explains very well why the evolution is getting accelerated. This is all depending on scientific observations. So, okay, now we can move back to the Mayan calendar, and let's just, when we do that, let's just ground our feet on solid ground, okay? Like actual evidences, actual findings of the Maya, from the Mayan culture. And one of them is the famous Tortuguero monument number 6. This is a very significant monument. This is actually the only archaeological finding that is coming from the Mayan culture that actually talks about what will happen in the end of the Mayan calendar. I guess this is very important, interesting for you. Well, it says that the 13th Baktun will be finished on 4 Ahau. The 3rd of Kankin, something will occur. It will be the descent of the 9th support, God to the question mark. So this is because some of these glyphs are destroyed. So we can't entirely read what is written. This is just what we can read. And it didn't sound very logical to you, I guess. I mean, it's not very meaningful so far. But there is one thing that can be concluded from here is that if this is the only Mayan calendar archaeological finding that talks about the end of the Mayan calendar, you can see that there is no end of the world here. There's no catastrophes. There's nothing big, kind of a divine penalty given to us or something like that. It just says basically that the 13 Baktun will finish. The 13 Baktun, remember the Baktun is just a time unit. 13 of is the long count calendar. One of these days of the Mayan calendar, one of these energies of the Zolkin calendar, and the descent of the 9 support gods. Like, what would it mean? Well, actually, according to, you can read an article about it on the internet. You can just check Kalaman's webpage. He's written an article about it. In that article, he talks about how Jenkins interprets this text, and according to that, this 9 support, this is also in the Mayan language, this is called Bolon Yukte. And the Bolon Yukte is actually a kind of a 9-leveled god, or 9 supportive gods. So then we would conclude that at the end of the Mayan calendar, these 9 gods will descend from heaven to earth. They will come down to the earth, these 9-leveled gods, or 9 gods, you might want to say. So, but then what is this 9 about? How do we come to this 9? Why 9? I just want to bring you back to this picture. These are the time units that the Maya have been using in this tomb system. If you just start counting from 0, from Hablatun to Alatun, you will see that there are 9 time units, and on top of them there is kin, which is day. So day is somehow a kind of intersect point between the spiritual calendar of the Maya and the astronomical time, because day is an astronomical time unit, right? It's just one revolving of the earth around itself. So if we take away the day, you will see there are 9 time units here. Vinal, Tun, Katun, Baktun, there are 9 of them. So there is somehow of a kind of a correlation between these 9 time units and the 9 supportive gods, or Bolon Yukte. But I need to give you some more clues about what I'm trying to tell you. And one of them is about this pyramid in Chichen Itza. This is one of the most famous Mayan pyramids, called the Pyramid of Quetzalcoatl or Kukulkan, and the plumed serpent. And this pyramid has a lot of incredible aspects, but I just don't want to go into them. But we can see that there are actually, it's like built in a 9-leveled way. There are 9 terraces, there are 9 floors. And on top of those 9 floors, they have their temple on the top. So, 9-leveled gods, 9 primary time units, and 9-leveled pyramids. And this is not just the only pyramid. The Temple of Inscriptions in Palenque also has 9 levels, and on the top of 9 levels, they have their temple. In Tikal, the Pyramid of Jaguar also has 9 levels and a temple on top of that. So this is not just coincidence, huh? This is not just mere chance. That they talk about the descent of the 9 supportive gods. They have 9 primary time cycles, and they also built all of their primary pyramids in 9 levels. So what is the connection then? Another piece of information will help you to complete this picture. According to Chilam Balam, one of the famous books of the Maya, the creation took place in 13 heavens and 9 underworlds. Or the universe is formed in 9 underworlds and 13 heavens. So again, some mysterious language, some shamanic way of explaining things. This is not very clear for our rational Western minds. So the classical archaeologists were not able to understand these things, and they just overlooked them. But Kalaman came up with some kind of an inspiration and a careful observation, and he says that in his books you will see that these 9 underworlds are actually these 9 levels of the pyramids. So each level is a underworld, and these are also time cycles. Each pyramid level is a time cycle. So what do I mean? We are actually looking at the Mayan calendar here. The pyramid in Chichen Itza is the Mayan calendar itself. It's just a symbol that expresses how the Mayan calendar works, how the evolution of consciousness works, how the creation works. And this is also the Bolon Yukte, the 9-leveled gods, which would mean that at the end of the Mayan calendar, what will happen is these 9 levels of gods, 9 gods, will descend, and this picture will be completed. Therefore, it would mean that this pyramid is not completed yet. It's still under construction. So we are in the middle of a divine plan, which is depicted by 9 underworlds and 13 heavens. The 13 heavens part I will explain briefly soon. But this is how the 9 underworlds look. And all of them, each level of the pyramid has a specific time cycle. The first level has Hablatons, the second level has Alautons, and it goes like that. The 9th level has Vinal, and the 8th level has Tuns. So therefore, we are looking at a very intelligent way of expressing how the universe works in terms of evolution of consciousness. So, and this is how the 13 heavens look like. Okay, this is coming, these names of the deities which you see on the right side are coming from the Aztec culture, but somehow they are very close to the Mayan culture. So we would come to a conclusion that they actually are supportive data. The Aztec name of the gods somehow refer to the Mayan calendar. Because according to them, each of these heavens have a specific deity, which is ruled by a different god. I mean, each of the cycles are ruled by a different god. And it is like, I'll give you a simple example. Like in the classical zodiac, the Aries constellation rules for 30 days, right? And then the Taurus comes for 30 days, and it goes like that. Here we have perhaps bigger time cycles, which are governed by gods, according to the Maya. Well, for us, we don't have to believe in these separate gods. You can be a monotheistic person and just believe in one god, and that's fair enough. But for the Maya, or for the Aztec, these means specific energies, specific divine inspirations that shape our consciousness, that kind of push our mentality in specific directions. And this is what we want to explore tonight. This is like the core of columnist theory, 9 underworlds and 13 heavens. So when we look at these 13 heavens, you will see that like the first one and the third one and the fifth one, they go like more creative, positive aspects, like God of time and fire, God of water and bird, and God of love comes. And the 9th one is God of light, and then there comes Goddess of birth. And in the ones in the middle, the second one and the fourth one, they are like God of warrior and the sun, God of death, God of darkness. So they have more negative connotations, like more destructive connotations. Actually, Kalaman concluded that these are somehow showing yang and yin periods of evolution. Like from Taoism, the universe has yang forces and yin forces. And evolution also has yang forces and yin forces. So therefore, he came up with this idea that these 13 heavens actually refer to 7 days and 6 nights, which is also somehow related with biblical information, biblical knowledge, that God created the world in 6 days. Okay, and what did he do on the 7th day? He rested. Okay, so there are 7 days. So between 7 days, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nights. So actually, Kalman argues that these 7 days and 6 nights are depicted in this 13 heavens structure in the Mayan calendar. So we're going to give a short break now because of the cassette change. You said 5 minutes was left. 2 minutes. I don't want to break after 2 minutes, so just a short break. So these 7 days and 6 nights of the Mayan calendar have an interesting aspect also. The days are active periods of evolution. So whatever is evolving in terms of biological structures or our consciousness is evolving actively in the days. And what happens in the nights is just a rest. a period of digestion, about what happened in the previous day. And in the coming next day, there will be another evolution. So we are kind of also getting ready for the next step of evolution. Therefore, we can see that the evolution in the days are somehow similar to a way a plant grows. For example, the first day is the seeding period. So on the first day, it's planted. And then the first night, nothing happens, it's just a rest period. And the second day, it's the germination time. And second night, nothing spectacular happens.